Pokémon is one of those video game franchises that is just absolutely ripe with rumors. Video games as a whole always have a lot of rumors surrounding new and potential upcoming games anyway, but Pokémon seems to take it to the next level, as there is almost always some kind of big juicy rumor floating throughout the community that fans are discussing and debating the veracity of. While rumors of all shapes and sizes come through the rumor mill, today we're going to be talking about times where entire Pokémon games were rumored, and to this point, just never happened, either because the rumor was fake, or possibly for reasons we don't yet have the answers to. So with all that said, let's take a look at the stories behind 5 rumored Pokémon games that never happened. The first games we have to discuss today are the rumored Pokémon 1 and Pokémon 0. While sounding like a pair of goofy names that someone could easily claim are fake, there was some legitimate heat to the rumor that said that Pokémon 1 and 0 would be the main series entries for Pokémon on the Switch instead of Pokémon Sword and Shield. The rumor surrounding these games' existence centered on a few points. First, after the Pokémon Company themselves announced that they were developing a main series game for the Switch at E3 2017, it was rumored that the game was going to see its release toward the end of 2018. Second, this rumor was also tied to the rumor of an upcoming Nintendo Direct at the time, where it was speculated that the game would be announced. The Direct rumor stated that a Nintendo Direct would be coming on January 11th of 2018, and while it ended up being a mini Direct, a Direct did happen on that day, which would have only added fuel to the fire that the Pokémon 1 and 0 rumor was legit as well. Thirdly, and most significantly, the thing that really got the hype going for this rumor were the alleged trademarks for the games that were discovered along with their leaked logos. This was obviously trying to follow in the footsteps of Pokémon Sun and Moon, who did have their trademarks and logos leaked just a few days before their reveal. However, the odds of that happening the same way again are slim to none, so that should have been a giveaway right there that these games were fake, and sure enough, Pokémon 1 and 0 were confirmed to be a hoax just a short time later. Interestingly though, we did end up getting a Pokémon game on the Switch at the end of 2018. However, it was the unexpected Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee instead of Pokémon Sword and Shield that, of course, ended up releasing a year later. While Pokémon 1 and 0 were rumored to be coming out a whole year before the actual Switch Pokémon titles came out, there was another Pokémon title that was heavily rumored for the Switch before the Switch had even been released, and before the Pokémon Company had even made the announcement that a game would be coming to the console. On the day of Pokémon Sun and Moon's release back in 2016, online gaming publication Eurogamer put out a report about a rumored third version for these games. Obviously, third enhanced versions of Pokémon games is nothing new, so it's not that big of a claim to make. But Eurogamer were claiming that they had multiple sources tell them that not only was the game coming, and coming in 2017, but it was going to be called Pokémon Stars, and would be coming out for the Switch and not the 3DS like Sun and Moon. It was claimed to be an expanded HD version of Sun and Moon that was being developed in tandem with Sun and Moon in preparation for the Switch's launch year. Further adding to the speculation was that in 2017, a new line of merchandise was announced for Japan, which was titled Look Upon the Stars. This occurred shortly before E3 of that year, so many took this as a hint that Pokémon Stars was in fact happening and that an announcement was imminent. We did indeed get an announcement shortly thereafter, but it was for Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which were of course for the 3DS, effectively killing the Pokémon Stars rumor dead in its tracks. Since Eurogamer is usually a pretty legit source when it comes to gaming news, it's kinda surprising that it was just so wrong. But the fact that this came up on the day of Sun and Moon's release made it fairly questionable from the start. Eurogamer themselves even tried to explain the situation, stating that they heard from their sources that Pokémon Stars was cancelled and moved to the 3DS as Ultra Sun and Moon once the Switch proved to be a success. But then they also claimed that it changed direction in development at the end of 2016, which was before the Switch was even out, and that was also at the same exact time that they made the original report that it would be coming to the Switch. So basically, Eurogamer was full of crap on this one, and their explanation just makes them look even more guilty. And with that, the idea of Pokémon Stars was officially debunked once and for all. Next up is a pretty recently rumored game that unfortunately was debunked just about as quick as it popped up. Late last year, in 2020, rumors of a title called Pokémon Master Collection popped up when a listing of the game appeared on the website of UK retailer Game. According to the listing and the name of the game, this game was going to be a collection of older Pokémon games for the Nintendo Switch, with the listing stating that Pokémon Red, Pokémon Gold, and Pokémon Ruby would be included, and that the games would be updated to have online support as well as compatibility with Pokémon Home, and was supposedly slated for a release in 2021. Initially, this seemed to make sense, as Pokemon's 25th anniversary occurred in 2021, so it would make all the sense in the world to release a collection of some of the classics, especially since a similar thing was done for the 20th anniversary on the 3DS with Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow releasing on the Virtual Console. However, for all the excitement that this sparked, which ultimately inclined people to believe it a little more easily as well, it was easily debunked just by looking at screenshots of the leaked listing in question. Just by reading through it, you can immediately tell that this is fake, as there are numerous grammatical and spelling errors littered all throughout the description. I mean, I know British English is kinda weird, but it's not this bad. Anyways, as amazing as it would be to have something like this, especially on the Switch where we could play on the big screen, it's just not like Game Freak to do something like this, as they are very protective when it comes to re-releasing their older games, and something tells me that they also enjoy how expensive their older games are now, as it adds value to the Pokemon brand to have their out-of-print games selling for a ton of money, and a collection like this would assuredly put a dent into those resale prices. So yeah, this one was pretty easy to debunk, but it's not to say that something like this couldn't happen in the future either, so we'll just have to wait and see. Following up the Master Collection is a game that I am honestly shocked we didn't see, at least to this point, thanks to all the circumstance that surrounded its discussion, and that would be the Let's Go Johto games. Now, unlike the other games on this list, Let's Go Johto wasn't really leaked or claimed to be coming out by some kind of insider. It was mostly just naturally discussed as a natural follow-up to Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, since those games kind of established themselves as their own sub-series. However, that's not to say that there wasn't some legitimate fuel added to the fire here, and in this case, it was actually added by Game Freak and the Pokémon Company themselves. First off, shortly after the Let's Go games released, Junichi Masuda mentioned in an interview that more games like Let's Go could be possible if they were received well enough, with more games meaning games that connect to Pokemon Go like Let's Go did. So he didn't necessarily say that more Let's Go could happen specifically, but he kinda left the door open at the same time, which is what got people talking. About a year later, in another interview with the aforementioned Eurogamer, Masuda claimed that they weren't working on a new Let's Go game at that point, which obviously he would say if it was unannounced, so it didn't really mean much anyway, but that if the fans wanted something like that, they should speak up and let the Pokemon Company and Nintendo know about it, which once again continues to leave the door open, and from an official source no less. Finally, the last point that practically guaranteed that we were getting Let's Go Johto came in a Pokémon Presents presentation in June of 2020. The presentation formally revealed new Pokémon Snap, as well as talked about the Isle of Armor DLC for Sword and Shield that was released shortly thereafter. But most interestingly, in the presentation, it was Pokémon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara who was presenting, and he was speaking to us all in front of a backdrop that contained a shelf full of Pokémon merchandise, and this merchandise was heavily geared towards Johto Pokémon. In fact, most of the Pokémon featured were Johto Pokémon, and to put that sweet icing on this sweet Johto flavored cake, there were also 2 Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee Nintendo Switch bundles on display as well. This really got everyone's attention, including my own, as the Pokémon Company aren't strangers to hinting at things like this. And when, at the end of this presentation, Ishihara stated that there would be another special presentation the following week, the deal was sealed. I was fully convinced that we were getting Let's Go Johto, and so were so many other people as well. So when that presentation came that following week, and it was Pokémon Unite that was revealed instead, I was baffled to say the least. How could all signs point so heavily to Let's Go Johto if that wasn't what was happening? Why would Ishihara have his shelf so heavily Johto themed when nothing particularly Johto related was even going on? It still puzzles me to this day, but ultimately the door isn't completely shut on this either. While it might not happen, it's entirely possible that Let's Go could return in the future, especially since its sales were so strong the first time around. So while this one hasn't happened yet, it's always possible that it could down the line. While the rumors we've talked about so far have all been substantial and heavily discussed in their own ways, it's hard to say if they match the intrigue of this next game, which came from one of the most significant rumors of the modern Pokémon era. Back in 2014, during the middle of Generation 6, before even Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire had been announced, a rumor for a new set of Pokémon games known as Pokémon Plus and Pokémon Minus began to surface. It's honestly hard to figure out where to start with this one because there's a lot of detail to it, and in retrospect, it seems even more intriguingly bizarre. Probably the most interesting thing about this rumor is that, as I mentioned, it came about in 2014, which was right in the middle of the 3DS and Wii U generation. The Nintendo Switch wouldn't even be revealed until about 2.5 years later, and yet this rumor claimed that these games were going to be coming out for Nintendo's next system, and that system was a hybrid console just like the Switch. In fact, this goes back even further than even the announcement that Nintendo was even working on a system after the Wii U at all, as that wasn't even made public until 2015. And even then, no details were given other than the system having the codename of NX. So that part of the rumor was scarily accurate, but that's also where it starts to crumble and fall apart. At the time, it felt like this was purporting itself to be a Generation 7 title, as it came out shortly after the start of Generation 6 at the end of 2013. But as we know, Gen 7 was still on the 3DS, and Pokémon didn't move on to their next system, which became the Switch, until Generation 8. There are also lots of details given about the game as well, but none of them match up with what we saw in either Generation 7 or 8. In addition to the games being called Pokémon Plus and Minus, the rumor claimed that the region of these games would be based on Southeast Asia, that the starters would be a Water Steel humanoid Pokémon, a Fire Fairy goat/ram, and a Grass Electric palm tree. So, kind of exotic to say the least. The legendaries were purported to be a Psychic Ground Shifu Lion and a Ghost Fairy type that had, quote, many arms and hands. Ultimately, none of the details about the game itself, outside of the system it would be on, were remotely close to anything we would see from the actual Pokemon games in the years that followed, which ultimately shows, of course, that this was just a bogus rumor, even if it did accurately predict details about the Switch. It did ultimately make for a lot of interesting discussion, however, throughout the Generation 6 era, and had a lot of people talking about what the next generation of Pokemon games might be like. And there you have it. Those were some of the rumored Pokemon games over the years that never actually materialized. Do you remember these rumors while they were still active? What did you think of them back then? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon content. You can also support the channel further if you would like by listening to my Pokemon remixes on Spotify and other streaming services. This helps the channel an insane amount, and all you gotta do is put on some of my tunes. It's easily the best way to support outside of watching videos here on YouTube, and it literally directly helps in making the videos you guys enjoy. And it also helps with the production of my big follow-up project to Pokemon Cardinal, which is currently well into development, so stay tuned for more info on that. So yeah, any and all support there is immensely appreciated, and with that said, I will be back with another video very soon. Until then, as always, I love you guys, thanks for watching, and I will smell you guys later.